Actually, that's not true. I would prefer to work with silicone and do facial prosthetics, mostly like monsters and creepy shit. But that's just my personal preference. So this is land called fabrication. It is also, you will see it called costume craftsing. You will see the label or the job title sometimes being costume crafts person. I personally have never liked that, and I don't like to use it because it sounds like arts and crafts, and it tends to be a very in terms of the total roles in a company, it tends to be a relatively undervalued position that ends up with a lot of, it's like, oh, the dyed craft person will fix that somewhere and fix it in post, right? It's that kind of role. But fabricators are actually in any place that does anything that has to do with armor, history, monsters, horror. Every company needs a fabricator. Whether they like it or not, every place that does Little Mermaid needs jellyfish, right? Needs big fish things, needs puppets, right? That's all fabrication. So we're going to talk about a few different materials. When we're talking about the basics of fabrication materials, there are three major categories. One is two-part compounds that you mix together and it becomes a new thing. It dries into a plastic or a silicone, etc. We are not particularly using those. For one thing, we'd have to talk a lot about fumes and safety. For another thing, they cost a lot, and we only have some of those. So if you have something that I think that would be a good thing for, I will suggest it to you. However, that is not going to be one of the things that we're enjoying today. It might come up for a couple of you later as we look at your designs. The other two, so we've got two-part compounds. You mix two things together and it turns into a brand new thing. Usually a pourable substance, but sometimes a moldable or sculptable substance. We have things that are activated by heat and things that are activated by water. Those are your major three dudes that we're going to be working with. Things that are activated by heat. Some of them are activated by heat and water. Some of them like hot water. There's a range of things to work with here. So we're looking at a list of requirements. Choose a design. Have something that you are shooting for. If I cannot tell you if you are succeeding or guide you towards how to succeed if you don't have something that you are shooting for. So you get to design this thing or pick a design from a video game, from a movie, from a show, from a character you love, whatever. It is totally up to you what that design is, but you must have something that you are shooting for and you must be able to tell me what that is. So if you're asking me what's my next step, I will ask you where are your images, what are you drawing from? And I will not be able to answer that question unless you have something that you are moving towards, yeah? So think about what you want to make. Have inspiration images ready for referencing. You could print them out and keep them in your copy, you could keep them on your phone, whatever. But when you do have questions like how would I get this effect, I need to be able to look at what we're trying to do, yeah? Sometimes that is like I'm making a pinhead mask, whatever. Sure, I can look at that. It could be that you want to make a particular like cool joint or lace effect or filigree effect or something like that, and you can have a close-up image of the exact thing that you're trying to shoot for so that we can troubleshoot that detail, right? So you may want a range of images. We are not doing sampler pages. You've been through my sampler page process. We're not doing that for this pants project because that's just not what this project for this class ended up being. We will absolutely be doing it for your mask project, which means take process photos. It's underlined. Take process photos. Take a picture of your blank mask. Take a picture of your starting materials and take a picture every time you sit down to work. One at the beginning, one at the end is what I would recommend, so that you have a reel to show us from start to finish what your process is. You could also take video if you want to, make a little YouTube dude or a TikTok or whatever. You can document any way that you want to, but you must document. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And at least one sculpted 3D element. So that is up to you what it is. That could be a lot of things. It could be welding, plastic welding different pieces of PVC pipe together. It could be literally sculpting little flowers. Could be a lot of things, but you must have something that is 3D and sculpted. So not something that you just glued on or like found a plastic flower in the bin back there and glued it on. Okay. Something that you create the shape of. Yeah? Okay. Questions about that list of requirements, which is pretty much the only requirements we have.
Are subtle 3D pieces allowed?
Subtle 3D pieces are absolutely allowed, but if you go subtle and if you go minimal, it's going to have to be more perfect. Okay. So there's always that balance of like ambition and you almost get it versus if you go really streamlined or really subtle or really minimal, you got to do it right.
Would fake flesh being like peeled off be a part of that?
Possibly. It could be. Depends. Yeah.
Okay.
Is it, we are making a mask, not a prosthetic. That is the one key point.
Yes. But I already have an idea.
Awesome. We love already having an idea. Yes.
What if it's something you don't, what if you grow something off the mask?
I mean, I love that theory. And
a chia pet mask.
Mushrooms
I don't
or
know
something
how
like yes.
How this, like, you know how you can put something in a certain mixture of water and grow crystals on it? Mm-hmm. I was gonna do that with like a part of the mask.
Heck yeah, you give me like weird borax crystals, I am all there for it.
I don't know how well it'll stick. Like that's something I have to figure out. But does that count sort of as
Yeah.
Okay, because I'll probably do other sculpted things, but like.
Yeah.
I'm
Bring
not
me weird
technically
science.
doing it,
Absolutely
it's
bring me
just
weird
happening.
science. We
It's
love
a
that.
natural process. I'm not really sculpting it, so.
I actually grow crystals on things all the time for weird monsters. So yeah, cool. Do it. Yeah, we love that. Other questions?
I got scared when you said 3D. I'm such a 2D person. This is 3D. Anyway, so like if you're making a mask and you like put little like, I don't know how to call it, but lining like with like glue-ish stuff, is that 3D? Because it's bumpy and you can touch it.
Lining with gluish stuff.
Like
the
making
design,
texture
like
in the
a
skin.
texture.
Creating
design.
texture can count.
Okay.
It had better be awesome.
Mm.
And it had better have direction.
Okay.
So if you took hot glue sticks and a hot glue gun and gave me really like complicated or ornate like reptile scales as a texture over your whole mask or something,
Right.
sweet.
Right.
If you give me like random dots of a hot glue gun that you
Just
then
bop,
paint
bop,
like
bop, bop, bop. Yeah.
with one layer of acrylic paint that's still splotchy and call it a day, not so much. Can we
Yeah.
kind of understand? We're looking for some finesse.
Yeah. Well, because I was thinking it would be really cool to do like a masquerade mask.
Heck yeah.
And they always have kind of that little piping along
Yeah.
the sides and stuff.
So creating that texture, that could absolutely be part of it. I would think about, they usually also have what we tend to call a notion or a moment, but something that's like a little special area that has like buttons or pieces or something
But
like that.
I was thinking
creating
that might be
something
something that I attach so then
Could
it's
be.
like would
Yeah.
count. Anyway, yeah.
something to navigate. We could pour you one of those things. We could get a mold, or we could learn about mold making, or we can, the possibilities are endless.
Cool.
Yeah. Any questions?
When is this project due?
Technically, we have 2 weeks for this project. In reality, you are also overlapping with the time that you want to be thinking about and starting to execute your finals. So from here on out, there is overlap. We have besides the last 2 days of this week, we have 2 full weeks of classes left, and then we have the full week of finals. Your final project is not technically due until the last day of finals week, like midnight that Friday. I will continue to probably accept mask pieces until that time too, just because this is your time to navigate, so I'm not going to fight you too hard on how you navigate it, unless you decide that Thursday of finals week you try to do it all, in which case I'm going to have very, very little sympathy for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Are we doing like a final day of presenting like we did last quarter? Do you know
I'm hoping.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know like maybe what day?
What is, we looked this up earlier. I think is it Wednesday?
Wednesday is normally the best day for theater majors.
Yeah.
Because we have all of our finals on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Well, theoretically, it would be on our finals date, like the official date that we get through the university, because we know that everybody can be there, except you're going to be abroad, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So that's one option. Another option is that we pre-create videos or something else to document our work so that it can be shared in a more remote fashion, so that we can communicate in that kind of way. So we can check in about what finals date is best for the group at the end.
Would this be happening during the day or in the evening?
Well, that is, I'm willing to do either.
Because Devising, FYI, is doing their like final presentation. Come see all the things we've worked on this quarter. At 6:30 on Wednesday.
Cool. Well, theoretically, it would be during literally our final slot. That would be the standard time, is during the final slot that is assigned to this class, which we looked up classes and classes ago, so we'd have to look it up again, but it's like a date that theoretically you shouldn't have, well, except you, shouldn't have other finals overlapping with. Let's check in about that at the end of class and see if we can figure out what the best date is for this group, which is, mostly people who are usually here. Other questions? Questions about requirements, questions about masks?
This is what we'll be working on in class for the next 3 classes.
We will have a class activity, at least, so we have 4 classes left after this. We'll have a class activity on one of them. We will have a brief lecture with a short fun project attached to it, that's fabric related for one of them. So 2 of them will be completely work days.
So wait, also, yes, keep going.
Yes?
I didn't want to interrupt.
Go ahead. You
My other mask question is there any limit on like the fabric or texture or whatever it is? Okay.
There's no particular limit on what you design,
Okay.
but you should know what it is and have a clear notion of what it is that you can travel towards and be able to communicate that to me to allow me to help, yeah?
Monday the 30th is Memorial Day. Are you counting that
Balls.
into your...
Probably. Cool. We'll rearrange. So yes, we're
Okay,
gonna
I'll
have
show
at least
up anyway.
You should
No,
No, I'm just saying, like, cause
That's good to know. Yeah,
I'm
thank you.
thinking about it, so I'm like,
Tuesday lab hours.
Was it? I was. Yeah. Well, yeah.
Is that next Monday?
When are we gonna learn about our final project?
We can talk about our final project at the end of this too, but yes. It is your final project is super open. It is not different from your last final project, really.
Okay, just so that we know, like, hey, I'm gonna do this for my
Yeah.
final project. I need this much time compared to my mask.
Your final project is a thing that interests you about costuming that either enhances a skill that you have already picked up, so you get better at sewing, or you get better at pants, or you get better at seams, or you get better at something, or is building on a new area of skill that you were interested in, such as you could do a deep dive into like beadwork, embroidery, something small, and do some samplers, or you could do a completely different area. You could dive into something. You can also, there is a research paper or presentation option if that is something that you're interested in too. So we've had character and psychology, we've had rest and resilience and burnout as research projects. I've seen a full range of different research options. So you have a lot of possibilities. It is for you to find something that you are interested in and pursue that thing in relation to costume design. I know what you're doing. We're corseting. So think about your time and your time management, knowing that you have a mask and a final project before that end of quarter comes. Because you get to choose your final project, which means you get to control the scope and scale of it to a great degree, yeah? Other questions?
If we were, for the final project, is taking like a movie or a TV show or something that's historical and comparing it to see how historically accurate that is?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds fun. Yeah. Character analysis, history analysis, fashion analysis, all fair game. Are we drawing questions? Anything else? Thoughts bubbling up?
I know what I'm gonna do for my final project. So.
This is a friend that is called, well, this particular brand is called Instamorph. Let us not confuse brand with the substance. This is friendly plastic or plastic pellets. It is a heat reactive boy, and it comes in the form of little rice seeds. We love little rice boys. It comes in a variety of colors, kind of standard colors, black, white, red, yellow, blue is kind of usually the colors that we get. I think all the ones that we currently have are white. And when we apply heat to it, which the easiest way to do is usually applying it to hot water in the case of this particular thing, which is why I'm sitting here with a jar of hot water, we can watch it slowly go transparent. The way you know that it is ready to use is when it is pretty much fully transparent and looks kind of fish eggy. So he is not quite there yet, but he's working on it. You can look from the top. You can still see a little bit of opacity.
But these are like the
Here,
opposite.
for the camera.
Like,
For the
they're
camera.
like Orbeez,
Ooh.
but if they did like the opposite.
Thank you, Jackson. So using an implement of your choice, plastic forks and spoons are great. Don't stick your fingers directly in there. You can now pull it out as kind of a chunk, right? It is now sticking together because it will be sticky as long as it's moldable, and you can go ahead and check and see if it's as squishy as you want it to be. You now have a molding material. It will warn you when it is going to be not moldable any longer by starting to turn white again, by starting to become opaque again. So you have until it decides to do that to play with it and mess with it. Super fun. We have another bigger container of this, but I wanted to use this one for now. He do a squish. He's super fun. You can sculpt it into anything that you feel like. You could, I've had people make closures, earrings. There's a wide range of things it could be. You can spread it pretty thin. You can make a lot of interesting different shapes with it. You can make little mushroom decorations. You can make pretty much anything out of this. You treat it like clay. And the cool thing is it's also completely reusable basically until it's painted or glued. So I can just dip it back in here and make something else completely different. So you can't make a mistake with this. You just make him hot and wet again, and then he will be your friend, and you can sculpt it into something completely else. So all of your scraps are reusable forever, which is kind of nice. So not sustainable in the sense it is plastic, it is super plastic, but sustainable in the sense that it is reusable until you reach your final project. You don't have any scraps from this particular product. It's all
And this is
usable.
something we could use on our mask?
This is something you can use on your mask to create whatever you are thinking of creating. It will harden to white, you can sand it, you can glue it, you can paint it, you can dye it, you can do pretty much anything you could do with like a fired clay or a wood.
Are we
Dremel it.
building upon those white masks?
You may. They are here for you,
Okay.
but you do not have to use them.
Is there any way to get that to stay clear?
The question I've asked myself, clear things are trickier. There is clear Warbler. We don't have any here, but we could probably possibly get some. There is clear resins. There are a lot of clear options, transparent options, and I believe that Warbler, the company, which is both a brand and a product, but it's all under the blanket of thermoplastics. So thermoplastics being basically anything that's a plastic that's heat reactive and used for cosplay and fabrication. They recently came out with clear pellets, crystal pellets, I think they're calling them. I haven't had a chance or a reason to order them yet, but I've always wanted to. So, but it basically is this, but clear. So it does exist.
Okay.
Lots of things exist if you can think of the right terms to search for.
Because we discussed the fact that I can't use ice malt to.
You cannot use do not put edible things. Do not fabricate edible sugar. Don't do that to me. No ice, no sugar.
Gonna eat the mask.
You know, I mean, if that's part of your performance art dreams and you really want to go there.
I know what I'm doing for my final.
Let's, like, for our finals, let's all just make
Challenge
edible, like, everything.
Just edible flowers. Yeah, so you can do a lot of things. You can create a lot of textures. You can press a texture into it if you want to, if you're trying to create like a skin or a surface. You can roll it out into a fairly fine tube. You treat it like clay. He's clay until he's opaque again. So that's basically what he do. He's great. He gets a little bit sticky sometimes depending on the brand. So sometimes you'll have it like kind of trying to stick to your skin or stick to your thing. So don't use your favorite mug for this. But other than that, it's non-fumey, non-toxic.
Nice.
Hanging out. Yeah, these are cool. They're pretty user-friendly. In terms of heat reactive substances, we have a couple here. This is technically heat reactive. Water just happens to be the easiest medium because if you sit there with a hairdryer or a heat gun, it's just not gonna, you're gonna end up burning the surface before you melt through those little balls. So usually hot water is your friend with friendly pellets. I couldn't find any heat guns in our heat gun drawer, but I did find a hairdryer, so I can. So this is Warbler. I don't know if this is gonna work. It may not be hot enough. There we go. No, off. Warbler comes in sheets. Same deal. As it cools, it becomes hard again. So you can go ahead and make a sheet of whatever you would like it to be. You can stretch it, you can bend it, you can literally, if you get it hot enough, roll it up in a little ball and shape it like clay if you want to. You can turn it into the same stuff if you wanted to do that, essentially. Warbler reacts to heat. If you want to keep it more sheet-like, you heat it less. If you want to really kind of like munge it down into a ball and sculpt with it, you heat it more. He stretch, he do things. The brown, we mostly only have scraps of this, but we could order some sheets if people think they're going to want to use it. The brown has no fiber within it, so it can turn into pretty much anything. You can get cool, like when you stretch it, you can get cool like petals or kind of like mushroomy organic shapes from it too. The white has, I'll pass this around, but it has a fiber backing to it, which doesn't allow it to be quite as bendy and does sort of, like if we try to tear this, you can see the fiber trying to do its thing. That's basically to strengthen it. It's the same thing we do when we're making plaster molds. Plaster has no grain, therefore it breaks more easily and shatters and crumbles, so we add something with a grain to it to give it an extra layer of type of strength. Think plaster bandages. Same thing. Just plastic. So this boy, bam. This boy, I can't just tear through him, basically. Nylon netting. Still plastic. Scraps still very usable. These are all scraps from larger sheets, but we can purchase these. It comes in black. It does come in clear. The clear is very wobbly, but also super fun. It comes in the standard tan and the standard white, and I think it has a few other colors. Warbler is both a company and a product, interchangeable, kind of like a Xerox machine. Quite. Again, paintable, sandable, you can Dremel it. You could make a big lump of it and then Dremel it down to shape if you wanted to do subtractive sculpting instead of additive or shaping sculpting. Our next heat-related boy. This is an old school product called Shape. It is basically a foam. And when you apply heat to it, it shrinks and condenses into a plastic. That is what it is made to do. So you would always cut something bigger. If you're using Shape for anything, you would cut it larger than you actually need it to be. And then you would apply heat to it. And it will start to shrink. Can you see that? can squish it while it's still hot, so you can kind of condense it even more. Because this is a relatively gentle heat, it's not going to condense completely. You can melt right through this by accident with a heat gun, though. Just to warn you, you can absolutely do that. But you can get a weird, like, kind of a zombie skin kind of texture from melting it. But that's a little bit fumey, so I suggest you do that outside or in the vented area in the scene shop for spray paints and stuff like that. Because when you're melting plastic, regardless of what plastic it is. I'm going to pass this around, but you can feel the difference between the soft foam and the one that's been slightly shrunken. Is as it shrinks, it hardens. So the more you shrink it, and it will get a lot smaller than this, it could get to like basically pencil scale if I wanted it to. The more it shrinks, the more it hardens until it is basically a lump of plastic. There is no return. He do not bounce back. You cannot rejuvenate him by heating him up again. Once you've done it, that's what he's going to be forever. So that's the thing to remember. With
So you
him.
can't make it cold.
You cannot. You can make it cold.
But it won't
If
grow
you
back.
want it to, no, it will never grow back. He is what he is. I'll try to do a little bit better of like showing you his true plasticky nature. Actually, I have a piece. You can go ahead and pause that for a sec.